So please give it up for Jeremy and Kristin Andrus.
That last piece is the most important part.
That's what I figured. I figured we had to keep it in there. And really, I was looking at your bios and I was like, wow, these are really long. And then as I was reading through them, there was nothing I could cut out.
I gave you a shorter one.
You did, and I completely did ignore it because it just did not do justice to who you are. To kick things off, let's get to know you more. Who should we start with? Kristin. Tell us 3 things you admire about Jeremy that he probably would not tell us that make him a great father, individual, and businessman.
The first one, and I say this a lot because it's true, is he's as good as everyone says he is. Like, you know, we're like, no, but they're not that like good of a human, or they're not that kind, or that, you know, entrepreneur, or whatever it is. Like, he actually is. I ended up marrying an incredible human being, and so he really is that good. He is an incredible violinist.
Really?
He plays by ear, so my kids can be like, play Taylor Swift, Shake It Off. He could just play it. I brought his violin. It's in the car.
We expect that as the grand finale.
And then the third is he loves being a dad. We joke we'll go to New York City or London or anywhere in the world, and the taxi driver's like, you know, he was always talking to them. Tell me about yourself. He's like, what about you guys? I'm like, I have no kids. I'm like a single lady. And he's like, we have 6 kids. And he brags because I just like to take off that mom hat for a minute. And he relishes in the kids and spending time with them. The minute he gets home, he's all in on vacations. He's all in. He loves being a dad.
Oh,
so
I
win
love
for
that.
me.
I think that's amazing. Jeremy, don't get too comfy because you're up to tell us 3 things about Kristin.
I hate following Kristin, by the way. Not because that was about me. She's hard to follow. You know what? It's I knew that Kristin was amazing when I married her. And you realize that as you look back, marriage is a leap of faith. And Kristin has exceeded all of my expectations. If I were to pick out 3 things, number 1, she not only has more energy than any human being I know, but she gets more done with it. She doesn't just spin. It's like she goes and she gets stuff done fast and lots of it. She has the ability to rally and gather like no other human being I've ever seen. I mean, it's truly unbelievable. I remember when we were recently married, and you know, she said we'd moved into a small house in Sugar House, and fortunately, I married someone who had a payroll and a little bit of a nest egg that she built up because I didn't have 2 nickels to rub together, and I was doing this skull candy thing, and so she bought us a house and made me sign a prenuptial. I'm just kidding. And I remember she came to me and said, "Hey, we're gonna have a Christmas party this year." I'm like, "No." First of all, I didn't really grow up in a home that I'm more of an introverted person. I would rather not. I don't mind attending a Christmas party. I don't want it to be my Christmas party. And I said, problem number 2, we don't really have any friends. And turns out, we've just been married. I mean, we have friends now. And a whole bunch of people showed up. She packed the house, and it wasn't just a Christmas party. It was this wonderful, it's like it was a great evening. And, you know, that's grown from 30 people to 400 people, and they're all our closest friends, and it's as many as we can fit. But her ability to bring people together in a way that they not only want to come, but they leave feeling good. That's an incredible quality. And then I will say deep kindness and desire to do good with that energy. And that's been the interesting thing. You have 6 kids, and your life just revolves around 6 kids. And we had 6 in 8 years, and we got the surprise package of little boys at the end, and they are totally insane. And yet somehow Kristin has managed to not only be an amazing mom, but get outside and like truly do things in the community, heavy lifting things every day. So she uses that energy for good and just leaves a wake of positivity.
You two have been supporting each other, loving each other, doing the whole power duo thing for a while. You acquired Traeger in 2014, right? And it was already 26 years old. So what were the traits or the proof of promise that you recognized in Traeger that drew you into that acquisition?
So Kristin was a bit of a naysayer at first.
Every investment, I'm a naysayer, and it's true.
They don't all work out.
He has good odds.
This one is jury's still out, but it's doing okay. But I remember I found this, and I went to Oregon, and I sat down with a dozen consumers in a conference room, and I had no interest in grilling, outdoor cooking. I didn't like the category. It's commoditized. I was coming from Skull Candy. I didn't cook. I liked food, but I didn't cook. And so I went up there, and I just heard these consumers just like profess their love for this small brand that I'd never heard of. And I recognized there was some magic that had been created without a lot of investment, really hadn't made its way outside of the Pacific Northwest. Came home, went to the store, bought a Traeger. I'm telling Kristin about it. I put it together. It had the wrong hardware, and the directions were like hard to understand. And I'm like, it's going to make your food taste better. It's like, yeah, right. First of all, you can't cook.
I manned the barbecue our whole marriage.
Yeah. You didn't have to say that.
Until Traeger. Those darn gas grills.
It is true. When we made amazing ribs, they were hers, not mine. We both do now. And I brought it home, set it up, and she was skeptical, and I cooked chicken. And she said, whoa, this is good, and you cooked it. And so there was like something very, very simple and yet very profound about this. I'll call it, it was a gem. It was a gem that just hadn't found its way to market, and it actually changed people's lives. People would buy this product, bring it home, and they would start to cook for their families, and it would change their families because they didn't go out to fast food. They ate at home, and and we love the mission of what's turned out to be the mission of the business, but food is this great communal experience that brings people together. It like doesn't matter from where. It's a common bond. And we love that about it. We think food's important and experiences around table with family, friends, loved ones. And so it was pretty raw when we bought it. Now, we knew that, but it was a lot more raw than we'd understood. And there was definitely a moment where I regretted it deeply.
Well, that's my next question is, what did you learn in this acquisition process? Probably both of you. What did you learn?
Well, I'll say what we learned, he, both of us, in between. Skull Candy was 8 years, all in. He was never home, head down. I think he was very, very into the details of every meeting. He did not go to Best Buy, Target, like wherever. He was always gone, always in China. And then he took a year off to figure out what was next. And that's where I feel like the learning, it was like he really took time. He met with people, but then he sat down and probably wrote down and thought like, what did I do wrong? What did I do right? And how am I going to do it differently? And even that work-life balance, he was very, very careful of when Traeger started, even though it was as much of a startup as Skull Candy, almost in a different way. He did it differently. Like he came home at 6:30 or 7. He built an incredible team. He didn't have to be as involved in every single thing. He was higher level. Like there was 100 different things, but it changed our family, and it was also, I did love to cook, and that was my thing. And so it was really cool. It really became more of a family affair where our kids were involved. They felt like it was, it just was different. He created a different narrative this time and how he went about things. And it's still to this day.
It was truly it was a family endeavor, and but as I step back and think about what did we learn? I mean, it's like you can talk about market position, product innovation, messy supply chain, learned about embezzlement and IP theft in China, and like the learnings are endless, but I would say, like, at the highest level, you know, we sort of step back and think about what drives us, what makes us tick. And like early in my career, I wanted to be successful. I didn't really know what that meant. I wanted to be an entrepreneur. I certainly didn't anticipate what that meant. I wanted to pay off the Subaru, our mortgage, my day trading debt that I had from before we got married, and then put a few bucks in the bank. And we got to that moment, and then you realize we're safe, like we're secure. We're in a place where we can actually think about how do we have impact, and that's something that that we talk about. And if I were to say what did I really learn at Traeger, it's a whole bunch of things that I would say surround having positive impact, and it's as a business leader, you know, when you have when you've accomplished more than you expected to, you sort of step back and say, boy, this is borrowed time now. Like, my career is more than I expected. So how do I do something that's not just meaningful for me as a professional business leader or for us as a family and a partnership, but how do we do something that's meaningful for everyone that connects? My team, their families, our customers that are around the world, our community. Kristin talked about family. That's one of the areas of impact that I thought a lot about. I remember a moment where Kristin said, we had daughters 4 and 2 years old. She was driving in Park City, going not very, very close to the office, and our 4-year-old Audrey said, hey, look, that's where Daddy lives. And she's like, that's his office. But we knew what she meant. Yeah. Dad spent a lot of time there. And so I think you step back and figure out how can we be better, not because we spin our wheels faster, but because we're more thoughtful around what we do.
I love that. And we can feel the thought that you put into building Traeger in the brand and the culture. What did you pay special mind to when reshaping the way that Traeger functions and is recognized as a brand? You know, one thing that I hadn't been as deliberate or intentional about as I spent time in startups is building culture, because culture is a little bit more of this. It's organic. You hire people who you connect with. They're positive. They see the world a little bit the same that you do. They all bring different sets of experiences and backgrounds, and that's super important. But you share this aligned vision because you sort of build it from scratch. When you buy a 27-year-old business, I mean, there are just bodies buried behind the walls that you can't anticipate. And I'd never stepped into an organization like this, and I was like 24 hours on board as CEO when I realized that we had just made a terrible mistake. We had written a very large check to invest in the business, and I realized very quickly and over the course of 6 months, very painfully, that we were part of a culture that was just painfully toxic. That I truly would show up and feel sick to my stomach, and I hadn't felt like that since junior high school. Like going into a cafe. I remember going to our headquarter office. I was quiet, not very popular in junior high school. And so there was a little bit of PTSD. And I remember going up to our Wilsonville headquarter office and going into the break room cafeteria, sitting down at a table and trying to get to know my team. And like pretty quickly, people finished their lunch and left. And it wasn't a place that was positive. It wasn't a place that people wanted to be. There was no aspiration to being part of Traeger. It was built in this very fear-based way, and so I developed this very fundamental belief that the X factor in not just a business, but any organization, a community, a family, a nonprofit, in this case Traeger, the X factor is the culture that allows people to share a common set of beliefs. You can't scale an organization by micromanaging individuals.
nor do people really give that much more than their job unless they're truly bought into the mission and purpose of your organization. And culture is the foundation of that. And so, we spent a lot of time, we set out to change it. It didn't happen very easily. And we eventually did some very drastic things, believing that if culture is a lens that we view how we build team, and capability is sort of minimum threshold, that's how you build something special. And it seems to be working. I honestly can't think of, this business went from $0 to $70 million over 27 years. And then over the next 8 years went from $70 million to nearly $800 million. And it's a wood pellet grill. What did we do differently? We built a team of people that bought into a set of cultural values and that really wanted to be part of something, not selling grills, not selling steel, but become part of something that was greater than that, something that was not just important to us as owners in the business, but that was important to our consumers. That actually was like one of those very few important brands that they look to and say, that's meaningful.
So what were some of those company values that you established?
So we have 5 cultural values, and they're Traegerized, but they truly connect our vision for the business with the values that we think will drive the right sort of mindset and sort of behaviors. And so I can tell you what they are quickly. The first is done, done, done. And that harkened from a very important career mentor of mine and current board member who built Under Armour, was the number 2 at Under Armour. That's about like truly believing in delivering quality. Everyone wants to deliver quality to our customer, but you really, really care about delivering quality in every moment to every stakeholder, to your partners, even if you're a customer of theirs. Like when you build this notion that the details, like obsessing over the things that say, I care about you because I'm delivering something of quality. Another is test kitchen mentality. I'm such a believer that the best organizations build a team of people who fundamentally believe in getting better. And like progress is everything. And so, when you build an organization, people, you just want them to do things and do more of it and do it faster and more efficiently. You miss what really drives human beings, and that's being able to say, I have more confidence, I'm better at what I'm doing. And so we want people who care to get better, and then we want people who care to be in an organization that wants to invest in them. No reservations. That for us is all of the things that we do to service a customer, and it's not just how we service them when they call and we pick up the phone. It's like, okay, what went wrong? But it's upstream. How do you really care about and like thoughtfully respect every touch point that a customer experiences? Stand in the 2 more. Stand in the fire is about it's about risk taking and innovation, and it's about this notion that like really great startups, really great businesses are born from risk taking, and yet you really see as they grow, they get into this mindset of, I now have to protect what I have. And as soon as you go from playing offense to playing defense, the whole mindset of an organization shifts. It's actually really interesting to see, there's a graveyard littered with great companies that were innovators and disruptors that subsequently got disrupted. And you think about Blockbuster, who, boy, they were going to beat Netflix by protecting their retail presence. You look at Polaroid or Kodak, who developed a digital camera and said, this is going to wreck our core business. We need to double down on what brought us here. And there are 100 brands that I could name. And we want our team feeling willing and motivated to take risk, smart risk. We don't bet the farm on a single decision, but we have this portfolio of risk, and we want them to know that it's okay to fail. When you start to punish or look down on failure, no one will take risk. Last is cook together. I really, really value teams that are low ego. If you look at my leadership team, for example, it's a low ego team, and they're easy to work with. And those are your servant leaders. There are no heroes at Traeger. I'm actually sometimes embarrassed as CEO that, you stand in front of the media a lot and you get a lot of credit. And it's too cliche to say, like, the team behind me built it, but it's true. And so if you see how our team operates, there are no heroes. We want a team of people that show up with a desire to elevate the others and to not disappoint, as opposed to those who show up and they want to showcase the work that they did. So those are our 5 values. We start with like 25 ideas, and those are the ones that we believed most represented how we built this disruptive thing long term, but also the types of values that we believed inspired people to show up and really become their best selves.
I think a big part of inspiring people to show up to work is knowing that they are working towards a bigger picture, or they're also contributing to impactful work. And I know Traeger has a company give back program. Can you talk to us about that?
You've been very involved.
Yeah, we have 4. I'm like trying to think. We have 4 pillars. Jeremy's not as I don't know. We work with the RevRoad. We've picked 4 distinct organizations and causes, and you can maybe speak more to this, but I know the Road Home is one of them, and there's the garden, that women's garden. It's like all food-based, and so I think it really speaks to what Traeger cares about, and and then let's see.
Roots.
Oh, Roots Charter High School, which I brought to them. We love Roots. They have a farm. We've gone and brought, that's been some of the most special moments, is bringing the students in, finding, I know you guys were talking about mentorship before, and we feel so strongly about that. And bringing them in. They're a farm-based high school. If you don't know about them, look them up, go on a tour. They're incredible. And then I think there was one more, but they also do a ton of cooking for refugee soccer games, and they're really out in the community giving back. And I think rather than always just like donating a check, they show up, they cook for people, they stand by their values and how we were just at the Road Home last night, chili affair, and we're always doing something like that really speaks to the community and giving back. They're also a nationwide organization, so I know that there's a lot that they do that way as well.
Do you know, it's for us, the mission of Traeger is to bring people together. And it to bring people together to create a more flavorful world. And for us, the most basic piece of that, the component of that, is food, and it's good food, and it's food that brings people together around experience. But the flavorful world for us is it's the richness. It's the richness in a life well lived. It's not just the food as the center of that. And so everything that we do has to do with nourishing other people. And we really believe in doing the heavy lifting. Part of the reason a for-profit organization does these things is because it's good for the soul. And so there's this very symbiotic relationship between giving back and your organization believing that it feels good and that we stand for something. And so it's really important that we get out there and we cook the food, we serve the food, and that there's a connection between our mission and how we give back to the community. And we do things around the country, but it's always where we have people, and it's where our people can contribute in a meaningful, manual way.
And Kristin, you are very active in the community in so many different causes, but one that I am particularly passionate about, and I think is amazing that you are tackling this. Let's set the stage a little bit. Millions of women in the U.S. suffer isolation, infection, and missed opportunities because they are unable to afford tampons and pads. Yet these women cannot use SNAP or food stamps and medical benefits to purchase menstrual products. Moreover, 30 states, including Utah, tax tampons as a luxury good. The consequences are heartbreaking. 23% of U.S. students struggle to afford period products. Nearly 1 in 5 American girls have missed school due to period poverty. In one study, 2/3 of low-income women couldn't afford menstrual products, and 36% missed work each month as a result. Tell us more about your work to fight period poverty.
Yeah, so this is something that was kind of this little known fact that when we brought it to the surface and started talking about it, it was kind of this aha moment of, we know that we have food insecurity, we know about the food bank and free lunch program at school, but a lot of us didn't know about period poverty. And I think once you hear about it, you're like, oh, of course. And every woman here knows that feeling of not having what you need when you need it. And then you put yourself when you're 13 or 12, or in the case nowadays, you're like 11, and you don't even know what's going on. And maybe you don't have a mom and dad at home that are helping you. And so many of those girls and women that are going to the food bank or standing in the free lunch line choose every single month between buying period products and buying food. I had a fundraiser at my house a couple days ago, and Jeanette Bott, who's the CEO of the food bank, had this really great visual for us. And she had 6 boxes of macaroni and cheese and 3 cans of Chef Boyardee and 1 box of tampons. And she said, I was the single mom, and I was on the street, and I will tell you what my choice is every single month. I can buy this much food for my family, for my daughter and I, or I can buy 1 box of tampons. I'm absolutely gonna go without. That choice is easy. And that visual to me, I've been talking about this for a while now, but it really stopped me, and I thought, every single mom is going to make that choice. It's not a luxury. Like, that makes it feel like, well, it's a luxury, and it's not. And so my friend Emily McCormick, who's actually here, has been working on the tampon tax for 5 years now. So come on, state legislature, let's go. She's still working on it. But I was working with the food bank and making sure that this immediate need was being met, and that when women were going to 226 pantries from Logan to St. George, that they could pick up with their Chef Boyardee and their macaroni and cheese, they could pick up that box of pads or tampons, which they just weren't buying. And then Emily and I joined together, and she had been working on policy for a number of years. And it's hard, right, in a state like Utah, and it can feel like it's not gonna work. But we went up and talked to the speaker and talked to the president. We were actually back there yesterday, so we're not stopping. But Emily had this idea of bringing them into the schools. And so with a couple of families that decided to do a public-private partnership, Gail Miller and her family, and they just, once they heard about period poverty, had never even entered their mind, they were like, this is a no-brainer. We're in. What can we do? And so it was really neat to get the community involved. We really created this groundswell of talking about it, of using our megaphone, and then having other people use their megaphones. Emily and I laughed that we were on this like dog and pony show across the state talking about period poverty and just starting to talk about it. And I think when women use their voices and their resources and their talents and their energy, we are the change. I've had so many thought leaders in Utah, like everyone who's like projecting of how can we change Utah? Do you know what the answer is? And do you know that it's the only way that we can change Utah? Women and moms. I believe that. I see that. If we want change, we have to use our voices. We have to find gaps, find problems, find, barriers in the way for our kids, for our girls, for our women, for our families, right? And make sure that we are lifting them up, that we are the voice. I go to these school board meetings or all of these different things. I'm like, these friends of mine on the margin don't have a seat at the table. Who is here speaking for them? Because most people are like, I'm here for me and my family and my neighborhood, and don't. But I'm like, it's we, not me. And so that's really been kind of the drum that I've been beating to, and I want to be that seat at the table, seat up at the Capitol, seat wherever it is that these people do not even know about the meeting. They don't know how to show up to a meeting. Like, there's 100 barriers just getting to the meeting to even use their voice. And so many of us are needed to use their voice, and that's how I intend to spend most of my time.
Absolutely incredible. And you stay very active towards all of these areas of change that are very needed within our state and within the nation. And it's a very demanding time at Traeger Grills right now. So talk to me, how do you do what you do? How do you divide and conquer and continue to get it all done?
Oh, man. I hire help. I have an awesome assistant. I had a great day yesterday. I had this really cool meeting with Sherry Dew, who's like a thought leader in the LDS church, and different meetings that I just came home at 4 o'clock, like so energized. And I got on Instagram, because that's what I do, and I hold my phone up and I talk, and I'm like, do not forget that as women, there is always the flip side. I just had the most incredible day out of my home in important meetings and hopefully helping to change the world, but I wasn't with my kids. So when you see women out killing it and building businesses and doing incredible things, they're not home with their kids. And when women are home with their kids, they're not out doing incredible things. There's always this flip side. And so for me, it's this balance, and I talk a lot about creating my balance, not finding it, because I think you're always, especially with a busy couple, you can't find the balance. You have to create it and be intentional about it. So I would say yesterday I was not home, and today I'm not home again. Normally I would try to, balance that out a little bit. So if I have a crazy week, then I'm going to try to be home a little bit more. If he's gone out of town, then I'm going to try to be home. There's times that I say no to girlfriends. There's times that I say heck yes to girlfriends because I need it. But I think it's realizing that I'm always sacrificing something. And I think that's as a woman, and I'd be interested in Jeremy's point of view. I don't think it's as much for men, but I'm always missing something. There's always that, but I'm not where I'm supposed to be at home or out. And that's just, it's a place that you just feel you end up being okay with. And then with him and I, he gives me free reign to do whatever the heck I want. And I'm so grateful for it. He supports me. He's my biggest cheerleader. He's like, go get him. He understands I'm just not the type of mom. I have 6 kids, but I can't be home all day. I think I'd be a depressed, angry mess. I just would. And so that I can get out and bring my kids. I bring my kids as much as possible so they're a part of this giving back in the community. But it truly makes me a better mother. It absolutely makes me a better wife. And I'm a happier, fulfilled woman. On my own. He still gets all the accolades. I get a little bit. But I remember him coming home one day and I'm like, in the midst of, I was probably like covered in milk and Cheez-Its, and I was like, this is all about you. And I was like miserable. And I was so sad. And then all of a sudden I was like, this is not his problem to solve. This is my problem to solve. So I stopped my complaining and I took back control, and I was like, I am going to ensure that when he comes home from work, I am 100% because I took control over my life. I ensured that my cup was full. He can't do that. No, my kids can definitely not do that. I am the only one that has the power and the control to ensure that I am getting what I want out of my life. And that's me telling him, I need this. I want this. Can you help me? We're a team. It's us together, and me being 100%, him being 100%, it's magic.
There you go. First of all, depressed, angry mess.
I know, not
I've
exactly.
never seen her depressed or
true.
angry in my life.
No, that's true. I wasn't really.
So maybe it's all relative. One of the things that I really internalized post Skull Candy is that balance is like it's elusive, and you can find it day by day, but over time you simply have to decide what trade-offs you're okay with. And I'm actually very confident if I worked 20 hours more a week, I would be a better CEO. There are problems that I could spend time solving, but it's not worth it to me. Like that trade-off is not the right trade-off. And I think when you recognize that you have finite hours to get things done, and after I came out of Skull Candy and said, boy, I was willing to give everything to that, and it's not worth it. Like life is just not worth it. I was much more deliberate about thinking about how do I decide what I'm willing to trade off professionally and personally from a family perspective, and then how do I make sure that I'm not mistaking action for progress by just running faster? Because there comes a moment where you simply say, stop. I'm effective if I go in and I use my time in the highest and best way, as opposed to trying to check off a list of 1,000 things. I'm effective when I know that at 6:30 p.m., I shut my laptop mid-sentence and I go home. Because if I don't, the path of least resistance, I can stay forever. And if I leave at midnight, I'll say, boy, I didn't finish everything. And so I'm effective because it forces me to prioritize my day, and that forces me to think about what are the 2 or 3 needle-moving things that I can do, meetings that I can have, decisions that I can make. Maybe it's not even 2 or 3. Maybe it's a single thing. And so as opposed to loading up my calendar with meetings where other people, I can empower other people to make decisions, I try to be a lot more thoughtful around where can I actually move the needle. And that allows me to feel better about my trade-offs because, the further you get to the right of the decimal point, the less the trade-off even has value. And so I work fewer hours than I used to, but I still work a solid week. And when the kids are in bed, I'll still get back online and just see if there are 1 or 2 things that I need to attend to. But, I've just realized that if I'm smarter, then I can build a set of trade-offs that I go to bed at night feeling good about.
One more question before we open it up for the audience. The trajectory of the economy could be very disheartening to entrepreneurs. What opportunities or silver linings do you guys see on the horizons?
So this is something that we have thought a lot about recently, partly because our business has really been whipsawed over the last 36 months by the economy. We were a methodical, steady grower, and then we shot up, and then our margins got crushed, and then consumers said, I want to travel, not buy things. And so, I sort of step back and say, it can't get any worse than this moment right now. Now it always can. But I think that, it's, I think it could be turbulent over the next couple of years. And I actually believe that you have to, if you build a business the right way, you sort of power through turbulence. And I don't want to suggest you don't know it's there, but you're so thoughtful around what you're building that you're just less prone to the economic macro cycles. And I remember at Skull Candy, for example, I was told there was a recession like 09, 10, 11. I have no recollection of that. We just grew and grew and grew. And what we talk about at Traeger is, number one, if we can build a customer experience that people really care about, if the product that we build and the experience they have with it is always like the very best, it's not just better than our competition, it's the very best experience that we can imagine together. And if we build a brand that connects with them on an emotional level, we'll always have loyalty with our community, our customer base. Then the other piece of it is, how do you always take a resourceful, bootstrap, scrappy approach to building a business in good times and in bad? And I think that's where companies get into trouble. It's like when resources are scarce, you do things so much better. You're so much more creative. You're so much more diligent around how you use them. And then suddenly things start to go well, and you become less disciplined. And sometimes you don't recover from that. And so we just believe that, the filter to invest or to spend money, to hire, I don't care how big or how profitable, it's the same. And I think fiscal responsibility or discipline connected with always obsessing over the experience that your customer has, that just leads to a great outcome. Do you feel the macro? Yeah, you ebb and flow a little bit, but you fear it less.
And I have one thing to add, because I know the question wasn't for me. What an incredible time to give back in your community. The needs are higher than ever in the food space, and the food scarcity, mental health. Like, what a great time to be an entrepreneur that's building an incredible business, but then also having a part of it where you are obviously creative and can come up with creative solutions for a lot of problems out there. And so I think it really gives us this opportunity to say, what are some of the really big problems? And I can be a solution. And it's not about money. And I think when we think about giving back, it's like writing a check or being a donor. It's not. It's about using your time and your talents to make someone's life better. That can be in your home, it can be in your neighborhood, it can be in your community. But what an incredible time to reach out, get involved, start being curious about problems, and start helping become part of the solution.
I love that. Thank you both so much. So we will now open it up for audience questions. If you have a question, please raise your hand. We will run a microphone to you so our audience online can hear as well. So we'll go ahead and get started.
Hey, Jeremy and Kristin, this was awesome. Thanks so much. My name's Kenny, and I'm building a company right now, and we're having a great time doing it. You mentioned, Jeremy, one of the keys to building good culture is finding people who care to get better. And I just wanted to see, what are like your top 3, or maybe your top choice of like in your tool belt of how you identify those people, just kind of your pragmatic ways to do that.
So it's a great question. I probably interviewed 99% of the first 400 people we hired. I mean, like, I interviewed everyone. I don't care what position it was. And when I first told and we sort of started over. I mean, we let go 100 of our 110 team members to start over, move the company here. And when I first told my team I wanted to do that, they're like, what? Like, first of all, it's a bad use of your time. Second of all, we didn't think you were a micromanager. I'm sure they think we wouldn't have joined had we thought you were a micromanager. And I said, just to be clear, this has nothing to do with micromanaging. I don't need to see anyone's resume. I don't care what role we're hiring them for. I view a founder CEO's role, like, first and foremost, as filtering, it's protecting culture. And how do you protect culture? Well, you don't motivate people to live differently than their DNA. You filter for culture when you bring them in. And so I interviewed everyone. And there did come a moment where that just wasn't sustainable. And so so then I said, well, how do we scale like this really effective ability to filter for culture? And I've seen it. I see it over and over again. I would have people come to my office, super capable, but I would just go back to the hiring manager and say, my gosh, did you think about this? This person's never taken a risk in their life. Why do we think that this is like the right place for them? And I got fewer and fewer of those people. Then I said, okay, we're gonna be very intentional around how we train anyone who hires. And I remember getting the leadership team together, and we separated into small groups and said, okay, I want you to come back with 3 questions, 3 specific questions that really effectively get at each of the 5 values, so 15 questions. How can we discover through these questions that have nothing to do with a professional accomplishment if our values are already in their DNA? And it was hard. I mean, like, people struggled, and they thought it was going to be really easy. Well, we spent a lot of time figuring this out, and then we published and we go through. Anyone that hires needs to be deeply trained on this, because I think you learn how to filter for capability in your function really quickly in your career, but filtering for values is much harder, and it's been game changing. I will tell you that we get it right so much more than we get it wrong, and that wasn't the case early on.
Okay, I have a question as well, and I think both of you touched on this a little bit, but maybe more directly. How do you avoid the burnout of all of the roles that both of you guys are juggling?
So, you know what? I remember looking at a family friend who ran Black & Decker for 28 years. I remember he's in his mid-60s and just thinking, how do you do it every day? Like, how do you come back every day? He's a bishop, a stake president. I mean, like, very, very full schedule. And I don't know that I completely understood that until recently. And that's because I feel more energy and more motivation than at any moment in my career. And my motivation's different. It hasn't had anything to do with money for a long time. And I wondered, like, when I feel like I've been successful, we've made money, do I suddenly, and some people, they tap out because that was the goal. I'm going through the most complicated, messiest, most difficult moment of my career, and I love it. I mean, like, I would rather be winning, to be clear, but the problems that we're solving, they're really interesting, and I don't fear them anymore. And so I think, really, for me, burnout's about really understanding what makes me tick, and it's personal, it's professional, it's community, and then suddenly the energy grows even though I'm getting slightly older day by day. But the energy grows, and it's really cool where you start to feel this intersection between, like, a lot of energy to keep doing good and having impact, and just more confidence and knowledge and pattern recognition, because these things aren't rocket science, but really going through experiences has just made me and us a lot more capable of making better decisions faster.
Yeah, and I'd say part of that for me was recognizing who am I as a woman, and how does that reflect in my motherhood, in being a wife, being a sister, being a friend, and authentically owning who I am. So I'm like, I can't, like, all my neighbors, when my kids were little, were home all day, never left the house. And I'm like gonna freak out if I do that. Like, I remember calling Jeremy. He's like traveling between some city to some city. I'm like, come home. Like, I had one kid. It's funny, I have 6 now, and I'm like, no big deal. I was freaking out because, like, I didn't know how to survive because I had this kid and I couldn't get out of the house. So I'm like, this is the woman I am, and I owned it, and I got what I needed, and I'm taking care of myself, and I listen to a podcast or read a book or go for a walk with a friend or go out to dinner with Jeremy or travel. Like, I think we both also, like, own what we need in our marriage, what I need as a woman. I also say, as a woman, and maybe it's in your business, maybe it's as a mother, whatever that looks like for you, is making sure that hat of Kristin, of, like, who you are, is not too far from mom or CEO or whatever, that, like, you can be you and you can exercise and read, like, whatever that thing is to you that, like, makes you you. I look back at my life, and I'm proud to say, and every day I want to say I'm more me than I've ever been. And I feel that every day because I'm authentic and true to myself, not what others do and not what looks good on Instagram or outside, but it's like, this is what I need to function at my best, and only I can answer that, and then ask for help from my village, my team, building, amazing friendships, whatever that is, incredible, partners around the community.
I actually remember the moment that she just described. I was traveling between Philadelphia and Los Angeles with a layover in Salt Lake City for about 30 minutes. And I landed, and I got this, like, I will say, fairly spirited, tearful voicemail. And it's dumping snow. And I sat and I thought about it, and they started to shut the doors of the plane, and I grabbed my bag and I ran off, and I took a cab home, and that was early in our marriage. And, like, another thing that I've thought about a lot, and we think about together, is that, early on, my career was all about me. And not nefariously, not intentionally. It's just like I'd always thought about my career since I was a kid, and so we enjoyed each other, but we kind of we lived parallel lives a bit. With as much as I worked and traveled, and I could be in China and get on Skype and have a conversation and see her again a day or two later. And when it becomes a team sport, it's a lot more motivating. It gives us a lot more energy. It's not just supporting one another, but actually caring. That for me has been, it's team sport. Yeah, you got a lot of support, not just behind you, but next to you.
I mean, he's been talking about periods more than he ever thought he would in his life.
I will say,
he has leaned in hard.
there was a moment where I drove home, and I aspire to have very little in life, and one of those things was a garage door that I could park, a garage that I could park my car in, which we didn't have for years. It's like, clear off the snow. We finally got it. I remember one day pulling in, opening the garage, and it was like loaded with pads and tampons to the ceiling. It's like, I finally get a garage, and now it's a store. It's a warehouse. Our dinner conversations have changed a lot over the last few years.
All right, we have one more question over here.
Actually, I don't have a question. I just wanted to say that I appreciate what you've brought today. I think as entrepreneurs, we're so highly focused on building the thing that we're trying to build that sometimes we lose sight. And I love, Kristin, how you explained that we don't have to wait until our ship comes in to become this philanthropic person. We can do that along the way, because really when your ship comes in, if you're a jerk, you're just a jerk with more money. It doesn't change who you are. And so I really appreciate that. And I have direct knowledge of this because I know that you support Food for Kids in an organization that my family and I have volunteered at for 6 years. And I just think it's fantastic. So thank you very much for today.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. We have one last question that we'd like to ask everyone who joins us on the RevRoad stage. What is something fun that your success has allowed you to do?
I'll go first. Absolutely, hands down, giving back. Like, we've had a couple of successful outcomes, and I remember, sitting on a spin bike waiting for the deal to close, where you're like, this is it, this is the pinnacle of everything. And then you're like, my kids still fight. I still have so much laundry. Like, life goes on, and you're like, no, I'm gonna just change. But I remember when he texted me, and I remember crying, and it was like the exact opposite reaction of what I thought I would have. And I felt this really, really heavy responsibility of where much is given, much is required. And it actually made me like sick, like physically sick. And I still remember that feeling. And I left, and I thought, we have so much to do. But I think I've turned that on its head, where it's become who we are as a family. It's not what we do, but it's who we are. And it has absolutely been the most incredible part of our family culture, of things that I do with my kids when we travel, giving back. Like, when we look back on any opportunity, those are the ones that I remember. Is we'll be at For the Kids tomorrow, actually, with those are the moments. And it's not the great vacation, it's being hot and hungry and giving back on vacation that your kids remember. But it's afforded us these cool opportunities that I would say you don't have to have money to do. I think I probably thought that you did, but you don't, because you can show up and sign up and volunteer and find out what you care and love about and just go. So I would say it afforded us this vision and this new world into giving back and loving others and lifting others in our community. And I don't know that we would have done that. I could have, but I don't know if I would have started the path.
I didn't grow up in a family with much money, and it's something that I worry about, that we worry about. Our children are growing up differently than I did, and we really want them to understand the world, not the world that we live in. We live in a holiday Utah, and it's like this amazing little bubble. 6 weeks ago, 8 weeks ago, it was a Sunday afternoon, we were sitting on the floor of a townhome of a Nepali family as they cooked, and we ate with our hands, and our children. It was really interesting to watch our children who do who do this all the time. They find themselves in places where they can get a different perspective on the world. And, initially they were uncomfortable. It's like the first time you do something like that, it's like, whoa, this isn't like my house. We're not eating with knives and forks. Not that our kids don't throw food with their hands. But, we really want our children to see the world from a different perspective, and so we're able to do that locally. We're able to get to get out and travel the world. We were in, right before the pandemic, we were in Peru on a charity vision trip, and we were in small towns and schools, and putting glasses on children that have never really seen the world before, because, and so it's really cool where the downside is that there's always a risk of entitlement and work ethic, and we fear it, and we do everything we can to work around that. But the upside is that they get to have a perspective on the world that's really interesting and hopefully forms how they think about giving back.
That is wonderful. Please give one more round of applause and thank you to Kristin and Jeremy Andrus.